have to make an amendment to that then.
Right, I'll talk to Scott.
That's underneath this.
Mention something.
Okay, I'm off tomorrow, Monday, holiday Monday, so. The following Tuesday, so I'll catch it.
Oh, you know, I guess all the daughters.
I'll go down there.
up tonight. You didn't reach out to me.
I haven't heard from him.
Yes, be ready.
I figured I might have to call.
Get quick, the collection of water bottles on there.
June 15th, 2023. Oh, I see what
All right, we have 6:30. We will call the Stephenson County Board meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Ronnie Bush.
Here.
Samuel Newton. Luann Hayes.
Here.
Casey Anthony.
Present.
William Hadley.
Here.
Jim.
Here.
Kurt Copeland.
Here.
Adam Moderer.
Here.
Larry Jokers.
Here.
Brooke Dyner.
Here.
Scott Helms.
Present.
Jackie DeMeester.
Here.
Nicole Baker.
Present.
Steve Frick. Brian Grant.
Present.
Tim Whalen.
Yes, ma'am.
Present, 2 absent.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Jokers, would you lead us in prayer?
Sure.
And Mr. Brandt, would you lead us in the pledge?
Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you in the name of Jesus. You alone know all things even before they happen. So Father, tonight we invite you into this meeting to guide us with your wisdom in every issue we discuss and vote on. We ask you to help us stay focused and engaged. Please send a peaceful spirit of cooperation, respect, and teamwork in all that we do and say, just like the spirit of unity we had last Monday night's finance meeting. We thank you in advance for your help and guidance tonight. We are forever grateful for your unending love upon us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Mr. Bush, is there a second? And Mr. Brandt, Mr. Copeland?
Yes, Chairman, I'd like to make an amendment. I'd like to move a portion of your chairman's report, Sheriff Stovall's scholarship recipient recognition, right after the consent agenda and before public comment.
Okay, is there a second to that?
Second.
By Mr. Hart, is there any discussion on the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All those in favor of approval of the agenda as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All
I
right.
have mine.
I apologize, Miss Anthony. Before we vote, go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to remove the approval of letter of intent, as well as the approval of mortgage releases, as from my recent training that I shared information from on the Open Meetings Act. I do not believe that it meets the requirements of 5 ILCS 120-/2.02C, which is I apologize, I had it up and then. Here we go. That any agenda required under this section shall set forth the general subject matter of any resolution or ordinance that will be the subject of final action at the meeting. And I can speak more to that if I can get a second.
Is there a second to Ms. Anthony's motion to amend?
Second.
And Mr. Moderator. Go ahead, Ms. Anthony.
Thank you. So in my recent training, which I shared the information with, not only with the PowerPoint, but also in a separate email, just learning that the subject matter for agenda items need to be specific so that anyone in the general public would know exactly what you're voting on. And looking at those two agenda items, approval of letter of intent, I do not believe is specific enough to know exactly what a letter of intent is or what it's for, so what the vote will be on. And my same logic would go for the one on the mortgages.
Okay. Any other discussion? And this is on the amendment to remove approval of letter of intent and approval of mortgage releases. No other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I have my hand up.
I appreciate if you push
Well,
your
I
button to
had,
be recognized.
I pushed my button as well. I pushed the wrong button, I apologize.
Go ahead, Mr. Hart.
I was wondering if we could perhaps have an opinion from the state's attorney as to what Ms. Anthony just brought up.
Sure. Let me just look this up here. All right, so 5 ILCS 120/2.02C requires that an agenda must set forth the general subject matter of any resolution or ordinance that will be the subject of final action at the meeting. This has been interpreted from time to time by cases. Let's see, one that seems particularly germane to the issue before the court, or before the board, is in re petition to disconnect certain territory commonly known as Foxfield subdivision located at 396 Illapp 3rd, 989, a second district case from 2009. In that case, the Illinois Appellate Court held that the village gave adequate notice of an annexation despite the fact that the specific property to be annexed was not identified. In that case, the agenda contained an item referencing discussion and consideration of potential annexation of property. The petitioners challenged the validity of the annexation, claiming that the agenda should have, 1, identified which parcel was to be considered, 2, identify where the parcel was located, and 3, provided that the board would be taking, quote, final action, end quote. In rejecting this argument, the court relied on the reasoning set forth in Argo High School. Our Open Meetings Act does not require an agenda to be specifically detailed or that it be tailored to reach those specific individuals whose private interests are most likely to be affected by the action of the public body. It requires only that the action taken at a public meeting be germane to the agenda listed in the notice. We do not find that anything more is required under the Open Meetings Act, and we will not depart from the plain language of the statute by reading into it exceptions, limitations, or conditions not expressed therein. We conclude that the board's action annexing parcel closely related to was closely related or germane to the agenda listed in the notice, and the notice sufficiently informed the public within the meanings of the Open Meetings Act. This would seem to be analogous to both of the issues before us, and as I take it, the objection is the particular parcel to be related to the letter of intent, or the parcel that the mortgage release relates to isn't set forth. That would seem to be analogous to the situation in re the petition to disconnect certain territory commonly known as Foxfield subdivision. It's my opinion that this agenda does meet the requirements of the Open Meetings Act.
Mr. Hart, anything else?
No, thank you, Mr. Rosen.
Mr. Whalen?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I would just add that, we have discussed the letter of intent previously.
Our contract is public, isn't gonna know what that is, so I'm gonna vote no on this.
Ms. Anthony?
Just to speak, I don't believe the Open Meetings Act takes into account that it's ever been discussed before, that the agenda is available. I think it just pertains to that agenda as it is. That's my understanding of it. I wanted to bring forth 2022 PAC 71237, where an agenda lists farming options for county farm, and that was ruled that the agenda did not provide information about the general subject matter of final action. So there are other cases that show that being too general made it a violation of the Open Meetings Act. Speaking just of a letter of intent, a letter of intent could be anything. It doesn't have to be a letter of intent of specifically what this company is to move forward with a brokerage firm when looking for the sale of a nursing home. A letter of intent can mean simply just a letter to intend to do something. So it is specifically vague. It doesn't relate to anything or any committee or anything of what the subject matter would be discussed under. Thank you.
Mr. Hadley?
So, yes, Mr. Chairman, could I address this for the state's attorney?
Of course.
Wouldn't it be better if we had it on here that said approval of letter of intent for the sale of the nursing home? Would that would have been very helpful, wouldn't it?
Well, more specific is almost always better when it comes to an agenda.
Thank you, that's it.
Anyone else? Okay, we will take a roll call vote on Ms. Anthony's motion to amend to remove approval of letter of intent and approval of mortgage releases. Madam Clerk, please take roll.
Casey Anthony.
Aye.
William Hadley.
Aye.
Jim Hart.
No.
Kirk Copeland.
No.
Adam Modero.
Aye.
Larry Jogers.
No.
Brooke Dinier.
No.
Scott Helms,
No.
Jackie DeMeester,
No.
Nicole Baker,
No.
Brian Brandt,
No.
Tim Whalen,
No.
Ronnie Bush,
Aye.
Samuel Newton,
Aye.
Luann Hayes,
No.
five A, 10 nay, motion fails.
All right, so we are back to approving the agenda as originally amended. Is there any other discussion on this? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Moving on to the consent agenda. Is there any board member that wishes to remove any items from the consent agenda? If not, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
By Mr. Whalen, is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Newton. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Madam Clerk, please take roll.
Tim Whalen.
Aye.
Ronnie Bush.
Aye.
Samuel Newton.
Aye.
Luann Hayes.
Aye.
Casey Anthony.
Aye.
William Hadley.
Yes.
Jim Hart.
Aye.
Kurt Copeland.
Aye.
Adam Mater.
Aye.
Larry Jokers.
Aye.
Brooke Diner.
Aye.
Scott Helms.
Aye.
Jackie DeMeester.
Aye.
Nicole Baker.
Aye.
Brian Brandt.
Aye.
15 A, no nay, motion carries.
All right, thank you very much. Sheriff Stovall. There he is. Come on down.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, county board members. Each year, the Illinois Sheriff's Association awards at least one $500 college scholarship to every sheriff's office throughout the state of Illinois. It's to be awarded to a local student. This year, the Stephenson County Sheriff's Citizen Scholarship Committee selected Natalie Yeoman of Freeport as the recipient of the 2023 Stephenson County ISA Scholarship. Natalie is the daughter of Jeremy and Gretchen Yeoman of Freeport. She graduated this year from Freeport High School with a 3.979 grade point average and will attend the Illinois State University this fall. Natalie plans to achieve a bachelor's degree in marketing and use this to find a job in social media as a social media manager or marketing director. She currently has an internship at Highland Community College in the marketing department. We congratulate Natalie on submitting such a well-written scholarship application and being the winning recipient of the 2023 Illinois Sheriff's Association Scholarship. Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to public comment. Is there anyone that wishes to make public comment? If so, please come to the podium, state your name, and you'll be given 3 minutes.
Excuse me. Hi, my name's Ed Klein. I live over on Lily Creek Road. I'm asking you to please consider not accepting the letter of intent on either people that have presented them. And as you know, I'm sure you've all gotten the UCCI opinion. And it does, although it doesn't specifically say either, that the state's attorney is not quite correct, it does say it's reasonable. However, they spent about a paragraph talking about that particular way you look at elected, and they spend another 2 pages saying the way I believe it should be interpreted, which is the people voted for it. The people that voted for that nursing center twice recently, in 1970 and then 1998. In 98, they approved the levy to fund it a little bit more. And I think it's really important for us to make sure that the people of this county get to weigh in on whether they want to actually keep that or not. Now, I know what's weighing on all of you is whether this thing is just going to keep somehow losing money, sucking money out of the county. As you know, if you've examined TCM's spreadsheets, this year it is in the black every month. Now, it certainly is not getting enough income to pay back all the outstanding bills, but we're at only a 40-some number of census. And every time we advertise this for sale, the census is gonna go down. There's no way in heck anybody's gonna bring their loved ones out there if this thing's gonna get sold. So what I'm really asking you to think about that, if this census improves, we will pay back the older bills even quicker. And in the meantime, I would really ask you to consider making an interfund loan and paying off these bills so that there is not this. I sat at that finance committee meeting, and I'm sure it was at least an hour of discussion about what bills to pay, and that is a huge waste of time. These bills have occurred. You know you have to pay them. Let's just pay them, get it on a even keel, and every month those bills are going to get paid, and they will eventually start paying off the outstanding. Those loans will also get paid back. This is a really fine institution in our county. We have a really nice, really competent management company that's has pulled it out of where it was. I mean, they really are doing an amazing job, and we have to let them do their job. If we just let them and trust them, because they have, I believe the account is at least 9 different that they're managing, 9 different or own 9 different nursing centers. And if, with the way that the billing's taking place right now, and they've caught up on all the old bills, and they're really keeping up on things, and I just don't see how it cannot succeed.
Right, thank you.
By some chance it doesn't succeed, people can say no.
Anyone else for public comment? Please come up, state your name.
I'm Allison Broman Kahn, and I'm reading a statement from Laura Youngblood, who could not be here tonight. The Stephenson County Board is required to pass a balanced budget for the upcoming year. When Chairman Helms was the Finance Committee Chair, a balanced budget was passed. It is curious now that the budget passed by that Finance Committee is questioned by the same people who passed it. It's also a bit confusing that Chairman Helms would want the Finance Committee to approve nursing committee spending, even though he led the committee that approved the budget. It also looks like the newer board members don't trust the confidence of those who passed the budget as they present their own spreadsheets. Does the new finance chair not agree with the previous chair's competence and decision? The nursing home is in the black. The more attempts by board members to create stories and yet to prove otherwise just showcases what little confidence and understanding they have in each other's choices and decisions. Also, why is the board not following the facts and data, as was the chairman's mantra running for this position? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
Chairman Helms sent that I have permission to pass these out tonight. So send that this way. There you go. Thank you. Yeah, okay. Sure. That'll be better. You can do it right there. Okay. So my name is Jody Koss, and I've got a couple points to make tonight. The first one, I guess I'm doing a Katie Porter. I thought you really needed to see this really big. Plus, I printed it out so that each of you have one of these. It goes on and on that the Walnut Acres is a 1-star or below, has no stars facility, and yet here we are in the most important category, which I consider to be staffing, right up there with Manor Court, which is one of the premier nursing homes in our county. So hopefully we won't hear that come up again. I also want to talk a little bit about, I've heard a little bit that people have said, why do nurses only stay for 2 hours or two years? Why are our nursing administrators there for a little while and then they leave? This is the norm now. This is common. It used to be that people, that RNs, nurses aides, were loyal to their jobs, but that has changed now. Why? It started in the late 90s when I was a registered nurse. After 20 years, nurses were starting to figure out that their employers were only looking at the bottom line. They were squeezing them to work more hours with less staff. Management started worrying about how many paper clips were used instead of important things. This is not hyperbole. One of my bosses actually told my staff that. Those words came out of my supervisor's mouth. So I guess I contributed to the nursing shortage because I left nursing. This is now the culture, though, especially when you have $100 per hour traveling salaries. This is the result when the money and private ownership and corporations, bottom line, are the number one factor. Back in the late 90s, there were plenty of nurses, but we started getting told that we weren't working hard enough, and many of us left the profession, and not a lot of people came in because of the low pay. You can say all you want, but nurses really are still not getting the pay that they deserve for the responsibility that they have. So there are people sitting in this room tonight that believe capitalism is the primary factor in every decision that they make. You have caused this to happen over the past 25 years. There are repercussions, and a big swing to the extreme end of the bell curve. That's where we are right now. It's unsustainable, and the pendulum needs to return to the center. So your job as county board members is to know this and to realize how we got there and to stop whining about how it's so hard to keep nurses employed.
Thank you, Mrs. House. Anyone else?
Gerald Pedraza. In 1975, I traveled through Freeport regularly, stopped and shopped at Sears Roebuck, spent money in town. I am concerned about Northwest Illinois, including Stephenson County, and what you all are doing to maintain some kind of economic viability and to draw people's money into town here. All right? Those of us who live west of here are spending a lot of money in Dubuque, Iowa, or Platteville. So the bottom line is, how many assets do you have in this community that are high priority assets that draw people from west of here to come into this community? One of those assets maybe is the nursing home. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the zoning report. Ms. Henning?
Good evening, everyone. The Zoning Board of Appeals met in full quorum on Thursday, June 8th. The first hearing was to allow for an event venue located at 4895 West Stephenson Street Road. Testimony was given, and with a voice vote of 3-0, the ZBA recommends approval by this board without revisions.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
By Mr. Bush, seconded by Mr. Whalen. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Ms. Henning, thank you.
The second hearing of the evening was for Sean Becker. Mr. Becker is requesting a special use to allow for and make legal an HVAC business located at 9300 US 20 West Lena. Testimony was given, and with a voice vote of 3-0, the ZBA recommends approval by this board without conditions.
I'll make a motion to
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jokers. I'm not sure. I had my head down. Who yelled? Oh, Ms. Geiger. All right. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Anything else, Ms. Henning?
No, sir.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. We'll move on to unfinished business. Approval of letter of intent. Just to remind everyone, last month there was a motion to counteroffer made by Steve Frick for $1.6 million for Upward Care. That was seconded. It was to lay over last month. And it was seconded by Miss Anthony, and it is before us tonight. Is there any discussion on this? Miss Anthony?
Given the UCCI opinion, I do believe it would behoove us to lay it over again while we look at a resolution. So I will make that motion and then I can speak more to that.
Your motion is to lay over,
To
Ms.
lay it
Anthony.
over, correct.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Bush. Is there any discussion on the layover, Ms. Anthony?
So the specific paragraph that I'll read is just a short one, but we also believe that it could be argued that requiring a referendum in this situation would be consistent with the process whereby the building was only built after taxpayer approval of the bonds and levy that made the construction financially possible. It would make sense that if a building is built with funds from tax approved by a referendum, then the taxpayers would have to approve the sale of such property. So looking at this, I think that the nursing home committee should take up the idea of a referendum, which actually I sent to the nursing home chair and the county home administrator on May 9th, because one had been created previously. Fortunately, I did not get a single response on that, but there is access to that to start that process.
Anything else, Ms. Anthony? Okay. Mr. Whalen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we've hashed this out enough at this point. I understand the concern some members have about whether or not this could come to a litigation at some point. And I think we've delayed it enough, in my opinion, on moving this forward to see what happens. We don't even know if they're going to give us an offer at this point. You know, we're doing a lot of delaying discussion around something that hasn't even occurred yet. Right now we have a letter of intent of someone who's interested in possibly purchasing our nursing center facility in business. I, for one, think it would be a good thing for both the employees, for the people who live there. I've heard a lot of concern about capitalism thrown my way and others of this board, and I'm still, markets are what they are. There's no perfect system in this world, folks, because we're all failed people at the end of the day, and we all have issues. So whether a government runs something or whether a market-based system does it, there's going to be issues with both of those things. In this case, we've had a long experience with this, and I think one of the public comments mentioned was around 98 was the last time this was voted on. Well, that was 25 years ago. A lot's changed since then. So I am all for moving this forward just to see what even happens with this letter of intent. We have no idea if they're going to give us an offer or not. So I'm going to stick with that, moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Jogers.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to be voting no to lay this over for several reasons, and I'm going to try to lay those out for us. The referendum was brought up, and I would like to address that. I think in order to be honest with the public, we really need to ask for a tax levy increase as part of that referendum. But the problem is we're already tax capped. So I think you would have to ask for the same $500,000 that we're getting today, plus another $1 million that we seem to be short every year. So $1.5 million would be the number to put on that referendum, but we can't do that because we're already tax capped. The other thing is once some of these, we'll also need to think about capital improvements out there. So maybe attack another 500 on there for capital improvements, and maybe we could lower some of that once the capital needs are up to date. I mean, there's serious issues out there. I got a few more points, so bear with me. So according to the 2020 census, U.S. Census, Stevens County has a population of 44,630. Our current nursing home census is 41. So if my calculator is right, that's 0.1% that we're focused on here in the nursing home. Mr. Whalen's study on area nursing home capacity showed approximately 50% of capacity is where we're at on all the area nursing homes, and there's plenty of them around here. So there are many things that we could be working on that the public needs rather than the nursing home, which is just duplicating existing services and poorly competing with private businesses. I mean, let's talk about crimes, drugs, gang violence. I mean, we could be doing the Ring doorbell program. We could have more deputies on the ground, more investigators, more prosecution resources. Another issue, county roads are in serious need of repair, and that's due to funding. We have an excellent highway commissioner. We're about 12 million or more behind on that area. Another thing we could be doing if we weren't spending time and money out there, we could have work on a countywide fiber optic network. Illinois ranks 40th in the country for states with only 29% of the population covered. A fiber optic is about 100 times faster than the current broadband average speed. This would help the productivity of local businesses and hopefully draw more businesses here. We could market this program as a fiber for all, but we better not, because within 24 hours the story will be out on Facebook that the county is giving out free raisin bran or something. All kidding aside, the bottom line is we need to stop duplicating existing services that are not mandated or needed. We need to sell the nursing home before it closes and work on things that benefit the county as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jogers. Mr. Modero.
So the last public input on this as far as the vote was 25 years ago. I agree. That was a long time ago. I was 10 years old. Which seems like a really good reason to get it again. That seems like a great reason to move to a referendum, whether it's required or not. The more public input we can get, the more of an informed decision we can make. That seems like a really good reason to move to a referendum. The strategy of let's just mess around and find out, the other end of that find out is a possible lawsuit. That's not something I'm real comfortable throwing into the bag to see what pops up. Maybe I just have a more conservative method, but that's not something I would be real comfortable with. I like taking chances, not with a lawsuit.
Thank you, Mr. Modero. Ms. Anthony.
I'm going to speak of lawsuit right now because while that is a concern that's been brought up, for me it's not about that necessarily. It's about a government body following the law. This is state statute. What we're talking about is whether or not we would be violating the law, breaking the law. That's what we're discussing here. So what I'm hearing is county board members want to potentially knowingly go against state statute. We have two different legal opinions. So they're suggesting that we go to the Attorney General, which from my understanding, I've never done it before, but it can take a while. Or we can do what we've been discussing and what is also recommended from UCCI, that we put it out for referendum. So I think that I don't even understand why we're even discussing this any further. I think that we just need to move forward with the referendum. On a separate note, I just wanted to correct Mr. Jovers. It's not $500,000. Actually, what the levy is 0.1%. Every budget season, the county board looks at the way we allocate the levy funds, and the nursing home for continuous years has been stuck at $500,000, not to the 0.1%, which I know you can talk about PTEL and how you don't get to the full 0.1%. I'm excluding that. We're still not getting the full levy amount because it's allocated all around. It happens with all of the tax levies when we look at the budget. Thank you.
Just for a point of clarification, what we're considering now is an LOI. And to my knowledge, there is no state statute that precludes the board for voting on entering into an LOI. We're not talking about a sale tonight. So just for clarification. Mr. Whalen?
I'm sorry, that was going to be my point. I understand what Mr. Monroe is indicating. I'm not necessarily opposed to a referendum in principle. The problem I have with that is, as a resident of this county, I would have no idea what was really going on with the nursing home. You get a lot of conflicting information out there. One side's going to frame it this way, the other side's going to frame it that way. You know, having been in the mix now for the last 6 months, I've got a real good fix on what's going on with this thing, I think. And, you know, people did express their opinion, you know, last November. They voted for us to handle these things, right? I mean, that's what we're here for. So just because of the fact that we had a referendum in the past, you know, and I would never want to do anything knowingly illegal, period, exclamation point. But since there are conflicting opinions on this, maybe it has to go to a court of law, and if somebody's that diligent about wanting it to, then maybe it has to for some judge and jury to figure it out. But I, for one, again, I look at this thing as a whole. I look at the market that we're in, I look at the trends that are going on, I look at the fact that the census keeps going down. To me, it's kind of a pipe dream to keep this thing going at the county level. You know, I philosophically don't think it's the best idea for the county to be in the business. That's my personal opinion. As a county, you know, we have to, and as a board, we have to make that decision. And we have to be reasonable about it. You know, I'm not throwing hate on anybody on this thing. I understand where everybody's coming from. But the fact is, it's not in good shape. I don't, you know, I hear people stand up here and tell me that it's in the black. I don't agree with that statement. I mean, you may be able to do that on a curial basis and make it look that way, but when you look at the real numbers underneath the hood, I question that comment. That's all I'm going to say. Regardless, to the motion that Ms. Anthony, I'm going to vote against it. I'll just leave it at that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other discussion? Okay, the current motion on the floor is to lay over. Ms. Anthony, was that to the next board meeting?
Correct.
Okay. So, Madam Clerk, please take roll on the motion to lay over.
Casey Anthony.
Aye.
William Hadley.
Yes.
Jim Hart.
Yes.
Kirk Copeland.
No.
Adam Modero.
Aye.
Larry Jovers.
No.
Brooke Deininger.
No.
Scott Helms.
No.
Jackie DeMeester.
No.
Nicole Baker.
No.
Brian Brandt.
No.
Tim Whalen.
No.
Ronnie Bush.
Aye.
Samuel Newton.
Sure. Yes.
Luann Hayes.
No.
Six A, non-nay, motion fails.
And we are back to the original motion to approve upward care for $1.6 million. Is there any further discussion? There's already a motion on the floor too. So, Ms. Anthony.
Again, I just think that it's bad business to enter in with someone when we don't know if we can even follow through with the end act. So while I understand that there's no law stating that you can't enter into a letter of intent, the purpose of a letter of intent is to get an offer and then a potential sale. So it leads into something that could be potentially illegal. And looking at the nursing home, and we keep talking about whether it's financially solvent or whatever the case is, if you look at the county's expense and revenue and expense reports, our revenue is higher than our expenses. That's coming from the county's revenue and expense report. So I don't understand why we keep trying to say that's not true. Our revenue is 27% and our expenses are 19%. And that was a balanced budget when it was submitted. So please look at the numbers that are being put forth by us. You don't even have to trust anybody else. And they're put forth there on the website for the entire public to see. So looking at a business that right now is doing this, is doing well. If you look at the star ratings, okay, we're 2-star. So Every other nursing home in our area right now, in Freeport, 2221. And we have a 4 staffing tied with Manor Court. Okay, so we are doing better. Absolutely doing better. So to enter into this with a letter of intent, with what's next is a sale, which could be potentially illegal. So moving forward in this and leading someone to believe that a sale could happen that might not ever happen, I just think is bad business. We've engaged with the brokerage firm multiple times and come up with, that process to move into it, we can do it again. If that comes up, if we go out for referendum, and then the voters say, sell it, then we can engage in this whole process again. Let's do it the right way. Thank you.
Ms. Steiniger?
I guess my question would be is, where do these numbers come from? I would like to have a valid source of where these numbers came from on the sheet. That would be my question.
Which sheet are you referencing?
The sheet that gives the stars. I would like to know where the numbers came from.
Are you referring to the document that Ms. Cost?
That is correct.
I can't answer that question.
Okay. Point taken there. Thank you, Chairman.
Any other discussion?
Well, you could have answered that question while I asked that, Casey.
Is there any other discussion? Okay, so again, the motion on the floor is to accept a letter of intent from Upward Care at $1.6 million. It's a counter offer. Madam Clerk, please take roll.
Larry Jogers,
Yes.
Brooke Deininger,
Yes.
Scott Holmes,
Aye.
Jackie DeMeester,
Yes.
Nicole Baker,
Aye.
Brian Brandt,
Aye.
Tim Whalen,
Yes.
Ronnie Bush,
No.
Samuel Newton,
No.
Luann Hayes,
Yes.
Casey Anthony,
No.
William Hadley,
No.
Jim Hart,
No.
Kirk Copeland,
Yes.
Adam Modero,
No.
A, 6 nay, motion carries.
All right, we'll move on now to the proclamation. I've been asked to present the proclamation for the Juneteenth Independence Day. I'll quickly read this. Whereas President Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation was issued on January 1st, 1863, yet news of the end of slavery did not reach the frontier areas of the United States, and in particular the southwestern states, for over 2.5 years. And whereas on June 19, 1865, Union soldiers, led by Major General Gordon Granger, arrived in Galveston, Texas, with the news that the Civil War had ended and that the enslaved were free. And whereas African Americans who had been enslaved in the Southwest began celebrating June 19th, commonly known as Juneteenth Independence Day. In 1866, as inspiration and encouragement for future generations, and whereas the Stephenson County Board acknowledges the historical significance of Juneteenth Independence Day to the United States, and whereas residents of Stephenson County are encouraged to join the continued nationwide celebration of Juneteenth Independence Day to provide an opportunity for the people of the United States to learn more about the past and to understand the experiences of enslaved people that have shaped this country. And whereas the Stephenson County Board recognizes that celebration of Juneteenth is part of the history and heritage of the United States. Now therefore, be it resolved by the Stephenson County Board that June 19th is recognized as Juneteenth Independence Day and encourages everyone to join the celebration and solidarity and urges all residents to actively raise their own awareness of the significance of this celebration in American history and in the heritage of our nation and country. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
By Mr. Hadley, seconded by Mr. Jogers. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We'll move on to the chairman's report. Mr. Bentema, Mr. Remmers, would you mind coming up to the podium, please? As these two gentlemen come forward, I want to recognize both of them for their contributions to Stephenson County over many, many years. Craig has been with Stephenson County for 18 years, I believe, and Mr. Remmers has been with the county for 20 years. And I personally have had experience with both of you since 2016. Very proud to know both of you and to work with you, and you've brought tremendous positive things to the county. So I would like to acknowledge and recognize both of you for your contributions. You're both retiring at the end of the month, and you'll both be sorely missed and hard to replace. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, normally when I come up here, I have a little apprehension. But it's been a long road. I always want to say I leave something better than I found it. And I think we've been progressive, and I think one of the things that we did along the way, it was probably about 5 years ago. Of course, then again, the last couple of years have blended together. But we paid off the building that we're in, and so that was always a very good thing. But I think it's always hard to go because I'll miss the people, not necessarily the job. And so, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you much.
Well, I'm appreciative of the county of being able to help out, regardless of what side of the issue you're on with the nursing home. I spent 15 years of my life there, working on the betterment and enhancement of living conditions out there. Obviously, I worked behind the scenes. Sometimes I felt quite guilty when I had to come to the board to spend money, but that's the nature of maintenance, I guess. You're always trying to fix or repair something. So I enjoyed my time here. I've always been interested in public service, and I think that qualifies. I've been with the county just short of 20 years. I was a township supervisor for 4 years. I was previously on the board here, so I've had quite a few years within this county, and have enjoyed all of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I'll continue with the chairman's report. As far as Mill Race Crossing is concerned, as everyone I think is aware, the bids that we received expired at the end of May. Since the last board meeting, I've met with Senator Duckworth's office twice. I've also had meetings with Representative Sorensen, Representative LaHood, State Senator Chesney, Minority Leader McCumbee, and Representative Cabello, all in hopes of trying to bridge the gap of the $8 million delta that we currently have with the project. I hope to have more information before the board in July. Board members Casey Anthony and Jim Hart represented the board at the May ICRMT conference in Springfield. They do have information, and it did go out to the entire board, correct? I encourage everyone to review that information. There's a wealth of information in that packet, both from Ms. Anthony and Mr. Hart. It's unfortunate that everyone can't attend these conferences, but it's vitally important that we do have representation, and I want to thank you both for doing so. Board member Sam Newton also represented the board at the May UCCI General Board meeting, as well as the Executive Board meeting. Mr. Newton, is there anything that you can share with us about those two meetings tonight, just briefly?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. On the 21st, we actually had an executive board meeting to provide guidance for our upcoming UCCI event in Galena. It's an annual event. It's really a great event. It's really designed for networking so that you can get to know new board members like yourself if you are new, and then really connect with those who have been around for a while. Maybe you can find out information about issues that are going on in our county that we can relate to and find best practices. So it's a great opportunity to do that. It also has an element of relaxation for some that take it. Some are avid golf fans. I have never learned, but I wish I could learn. I probably will one day. But in any case, it'll be a great opportunity. The very next day, there will be some training that will take place, and I encourage all new board members to go, because there's always something that someone knows, or there's always a testimony that you have that might help another county. And there's 102 counties in our county, in our state, and I'm certain that we don't know everything about everything. And so meeting people and connecting will make you a little bit better for being able to find out information. It'll help us. So that's the only thing I have for that. Upcoming, maybe you'll report on it. We also approved this year's training, leadership training, which will take place with University of Illinois. It's a little different than we did last year, which was more virtual. We didn't really like the way it turned out, although we did go forward with it. It was the first time we had tried it, and it was obviously pre-pandemic. A lot of things were different during the pandemic. But I encourage you, if you haven't ever had an opportunity to take the leadership program, it really does give you clear insight on how to develop the board and how to get involved in areas and find out information you may be wanting. You can ask a lot of questions as well. And so take advantage of it. We've condensed it considerably to 2 weekends. It used to be almost a whole summer. Some of us took that class over the past few years, and I tell you, you'll be a better person for having to understand how to work with people. It even teaches you a lot about personalities, and every county board has to deal with the same thing. Everyone comes from different walks of life, and a lot of that is taught as well on how to deal with and get your point across. So thank you. I hope you will attend. If you are going to attend, see our chairman. He'll probably make sure you can be signed up and go from there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Newton. And actually, we did send out emails regarding the UCCI event in Galena, and I believe tonight would be the deadline for individuals wishing to attend. So if you haven't made that decision or you haven't reached out to us yet and you have interest in going, please see the administrator before you leave tonight. And actually, Mr. Newton, yes, thank you. The 2023 Leadership Academy, that is going on August 3rd, 4th, and 5th, as well as August 24th, 25th, 26th. We do need to apply this time, and I think that's something that's a little different. The participation is limited to 30 individuals. That's statewide, I believe. Participation is required in at least 5 of the 6 instructional days. There's no fees to go to this. They will have reimbursement for expenses. The deadline for this is Monday, July 10th. I believe Mr. Hart has already submitted his application to me, so I'll have the administrator send that out tomorrow, the application, if you would, to everyone else, if they haven't already received it. Please let us know as soon as possible if you'd like to be considered. Again, there's no guarantee, but we would like to get as many people applying as possible. The last thing I have, our first ever strategic planning session is going to be going on the night of Friday, June 23rd and June 24th, Saturday. I really want to thank the board members who have participated already via the phone calls with Eric Dregney and also the written questionnaire that was emailed out. Without your participation, this will not work. And for those of you, the board members that have not responded at all, I implore you to please do so. Please fill out the questionnaire. Please speak with Mr. Dregney, and if at all possible, please attend the sessions. The more people we have representing our citizens of Stephenson County, the better off we'll all be. Does anyone have any questions? Miss Anthony.
If you'll allow me, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to speak just a little bit to the keynote speaker from the ICRMT conference.
Please do.
So the keynote speaker at the ICRMT conference was a retired fire chief in Chicago. And it was told just a tragic story of his son that had mental health issues and then eventually ended his own life, and then moving into his wife being diagnosed with cancer afterwards. Just shortly afterwards, and her also passing away a week before his other son's wedding day. And so, looking at how people continue to work especially in his field in such a high-stress position, but then also dealing with these things in our lives. So what I want to speak to just briefly is, I know we talk a lot about mental health services here that we can offer the community, but what this challenge was to look at how we help our employees through the mental health struggles that they go to, whether it's their own or whether it's what they're dealing with their families. And how, of course, there's been a big push to destigmatize mental health, but also viewing mental health as a physical illness. And I would certainly, I know that my field is mental health, but I would argue that it is a physical illness. Trauma absolutely changes the way that your brain functions. So if that's the case, then physically your brain is being altered, making it a physical illness. So, just if you kind of look at that mindset and then looking at how, if you walk into work, this was just an example that he gave, but if somebody walks into work and be like, man, I'm just having a really hard day because, my son, got diagnosed with cancer. In situations like that, people know how to respond. I'm sorry for that. Is there anything I can do to help? Whatever the case is. It's not quite the same response when someone comes in and says something about, I don't know what to do. My child tried to commit suicide last night. We don't know how to handle that all the time. And if you as a supervisor don't know how to handle your employee coming to you with things of that nature, it can damage the relationship you have with your supervisor, and if there's also mental health issues going on, it can exacerbate those for your employee as well. So it's super important to kind of challenging us as we move forward to look at what we can do. We do have some things available. I know ICRT offers, especially for law enforcement, when something happens in the line of duty, they offer some services and things like that, but kind of challenging us and looking at how we can look at our employee policies and how we can support our employees as they go through mental health struggles, either on their own or within their families. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. We'll move on to appointments. Oh, I'm sorry. Gotta look up on Mr. Hart. Go ahead.
Just wanted to say on the same subject, his name is Patrick J. Kenny, and I've been to a lot of seminars and programs and seen a lot of speakers in my career in life, and he was one of the more moving and inspirational people that I've ever seen speak. He has a book out called Taking the Cape Off, and I would highly recommend it for anybody that is dealing with mental health issues in their family, in their organization, or anybody that the rest of the title is How to Lead Through Mental Illness, Unimaginable Grief, and Loss. And in fact, I purchased some of the books. I'll be purchasing more of those books. If anyone's interested or knows anyone that might benefit from that, if you please let me know, send me an email. I will order additional books, and if anyone is aware of someone that should have this, that can't afford it, I'll be happy to purchase a book and provide it to them. He was really phenomenal. The whole conference was outstanding, and I came back with a very positive opinion of our insurance program. I didn't go there with that because I have some issues with insurance pools, but this particular pool has been in business for 40 years and has offered stability in a marketplace that's volatile and has the vagaries and vicissitudes of every marketplace. So anyway, it was a very positive experience. Again, taking the cape off. It's in the information that Casey and I put together. And if anyone's interested in that book or looking at a copy of it to see if they're interested, please give me an email. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. All right, Madam Clerk, would you please read the appointments?
Approval of appointments to the Board of Health, reappointment of Lisa Flynn, appointment of Christina Hendrickson, and then approval of appointment to the Extension Board, appointment of Adam Marlborough.
What's the board's pleasure with these? Would you like to take them all together?
Motion to approve all three.
Motion made by Mr. Hadley, seconded by Mr. Jokers. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We will move on to action items and information from committees. And we'll start with finance. Mr. Whalen?
Thank you,
We
Mr.
have
Chairman.
2 action items.
We have 2 action items for finance. Approval of the mortgage release, which was around some older items that needed to get cleaned up. I don't know if the clerk has a copy of that. Do you want to read any of that, or I don't? Put some more detail behind it.
If you want, I can speak to it a little bit.
We'll have State's Attorney Larson speak to it, if you're
Thank you.
okay with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, in 2004, 2005, the county entered into a program, I believe is to rehabilitate low-income housing. As a part of that program, landlords could receive money to rehabilitate their property in exchange for complying with certain acts that they needed to do to satisfy the requirements of the grant. A part of that involved the county putting a mortgage on the properties that the grant related to, a mortgage and a land use agreement. Those agreements have been complied with, but the county never released those mortgages for whatever reason. Now, in the cases of the mortgage releases before you this month and the mortgage release before you last month, the individual property owners want to sell the properties, but they can't because they're encumbered by our mortgage, which probably should have been removed some time ago. So what you're being asked to do here today is approve the release of that mortgage so that these individuals can sell their properties.
Thank you, sir.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
By Mr. Whalen, is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Copeland, any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay. 1 nay. Motion passes. Your second action item.
Second action item, we reviewed and approved the fiscal 24 budget policy at finance on Monday with a couple minor changes from the 2023 version. And so I would so move to approve that here tonight.
Okay. Is there a second? By Mr. Jogurst. Mr. Hadley?
Yes, I got a question, Mr. Whalen. On page 9, you have it in front of you.
I do not.
Okay.
I can pull it up.
Has to do with the wage adjustment.
Yes, sir.
5% COLA. Refresh my memory, last year was 3%.
That is correct.
Did our finance director give us just an estimate cost of what this 5% could cost the budget possibly?
We did not get a final cost adjustment from her at the meeting, no, sir.
No estimate, could this be $500,000? This could be $300,000. What was it last year? You were finance chair, Mr. Chairman.
I don't recall the specific on a 3% increase of how it impacted the budget, not off the top of my head.
Yeah, I have a concern with this 5%, I know the CPI and has gone up some, but it would be nice to have a cost estimate before we put something in there, so we have an idea of what we're working with. Can this be changed during the budget time?
Actually, we have done that in the past. I believe
Let's
it was
say,
in
I hate
2021.
to have all the department heads put on all that hard work and come up with numbers, and then we find out that, we might have to lower it to 4%, Not all for increases, but I like to have numbers in front of me to know, I'll support this, but if it's gonna be a budget buster, we might wanna lower it to 4%, I could make that motion tonight, but, if we have to fix it down the road, it's just gonna cause a lot of inconvenience for the department heads to move it down to maybe 3% or 4%, So that's my only concern. I'll support this with budget policy, but next time we should probably try to have numbers in front of us. Just a rough estimate, because we have a great finance director. She does a great job, and she can put those numbers a bit pretty quick, from what last year, because we know how many non-union employees have. But that's all I have on this.
Thank you. Ms. Anthony.
Thank you. Mr. Whalen, would you mind going over the minor changes that were made from last fiscal year to this fiscal year?
There was a,
Mr. Whalen.
Mr. Whalen. I have a line version of that here.
so on page 4 of the previous budget policy from 2023, we eliminated 3 points on there. And basically, any adjustment to the budget after it's been approved must go to a 2/3 majority of the county board as a whole. So that way, there's not any of this borrowing inner budget with a department. So they can't take funds from over here and try and make good over here when they've overspent the budget in one spot. They're not enough, and they can look good as a whole. So anytime that we approve that budget, once we get to a point where somebody wants to make a change, it has to come from the board. That's the main gist of that part of it. So if you read the budgets may be amended in 4 ways, it's down to 1 way. All transfers and emergency appropriations after budget adoption require a 2/3 majority vote of all the members constituting the county board. And obviously, we had to update the document from 2023 to 2024. And then the only other thing that we did was modify the calendar slightly from the previous year.
Okay.
Just to update the dates.
May I continue?
Please.
The initial point that was brought up with needing a 2/3 from the board of the whole to modify, we're talking from like a specific fund, so like public safety, you can't move from one area to the other without 2/3 vote.
I believe the gist was, again, if you have, there are some line items still within their departmental budgets that they'll have some flexibility within. But this, I believe, unless I'm mistaken, and I would defer to the previous finance chairman because I'm still getting used to some of the terminology here, that once the overall budget is approved, in some cases, department heads would overspend in a certain area and then have to make that up and make it whole at the end of the budget cycle. And so we don't want to see that anymore. They're going to have to go over in budget and bring that from the board and get approval on that. Go ahead, Mr. Douglas.
I think the gist of that was to keep the account balances correct. And not cover things up so we could budget appropriately next year.
Right.
So.
Anything else, Ms. Anthony?
Yeah, is that enforceable?
What's your definition of enforceable? The county board votes on the budget as a whole, as you all know. The county board can make changes to the budget.
Once it's approved.
First meeting and the second meeting in November.
Right, but once it's approved, it's approved.
Correct.
So I don't see how we could put that in there and do anything about it. Am I wrong?
The budget policy is a tool that the county board provides to the department heads to use as a guide for crafting their budgets. As I said previously, it's up to the county board to hold the departments accountable to the policy by their votes in November.
Okay, so thank you for that clarification. That was my understanding as well. I had one more question, if I can entertain
Please.
that. Under page 4, for building costs, and this has traditionally been in here. I'm just curious if there was any discussion, it says the oversight committees are responsible for developing a multi-year capital maintenance improvement plan, must be presented, et cetera, et cetera. I know we do that every year. I don't even get a report on that. Like if every department submits that, we never really see that. Is there any mechanism, like not even at committee level, beyond maybe, well, it's presented at finance, it's not even presented at the committee level. So has there been any discussion on how to make that, I guess, more effective so we can maybe support some of these capital improvement plans that people are talking about?
We have not discussed that, to be honest with you. I think that's a good idea, and once we go through this budget cycle, I would be happy as a finance committee to recommend that we send that out to the whole board. I'm surprised to hear you say that that hasn't been the case in the past, to be honest with you. So, because it is in there, she's right about that. But if I can make one other comment too, going back to the COLA discussion, that was the one other item that we modified from 3% to 5%. And I would agree, Mr. Hadley, I'd like to see some more numbers on that as well. I was a little bit unprepared for that, I'll be real honest. Part of that reason is because I spend so much time dealing with all this nursing home stuff. And if I can get that off my plate a little bit more, I think we could actually get some other things done in this county. So, thank you.
If you wouldn't mind, if the board doesn't mind, I'll just make a brief comment as the former finance chair. If everyone has not had an opportunity to review the 2023 budget, please do so. Please review the 2023 budget policy, the 22, the 21, and even the 20. There's differences all throughout there. What I will tell each and every one of you and the new board members as well, if you're not familiar with this, is we have appointed department heads and we have elected department heads. The budget policy is a guide that we provide to all departments for their crafting of the budgets that they'll present to the board. The board has the ability to change those budgets to a certain degree in November or through the committee, which I think for the board members that have been here for a while have always heard me say, please do the heavy lifting in the oversight committees. Don't just rubber stamp things and send it on to finance to do all the work on it. So, as far as accountability is concerned, the things that are put inside this budget policy, your recourse or your way to keep people above board is how you vote and how you change budgets. That's all I'll say on that. Anything else, Ms. Anthony, before I move on?
No, thank you.
Mr. Newton.
I'm going to let it go. You kind of covered a lot of what I was going to already say, so thank you.
Yeah. County Administrator, newcomer.
I just wanted to kind of clarify when Mr. Whalen was talking about those paragraphs that came out. What he's referencing is those end of the year budget amendments that we stopped doing 2 or 3 budget cycles ago. It was that word used to refer to as the end of the year cleanup, where if one line item within a fund was over, they would adjust it with a different line item within that fund. When we switched auditing firms, our recommendation was to not do that as long as the fund was not over as a whole, because it paints a clearer, more transparent, better budgeting tool moving forward year to year to see where your dollars are actually spent. The other thing is I did just speak with the finance director to see if she had those numbers. That would be a pretty lengthy process of what the cost would be because of the non-union employees. You have some that are under contract, you have some that are bound by the AOIC, which is the Administrative Office of the Illinois Courts, that dictates what COLAs they get regardless of what's in budget policy. It would be more of a lengthy process than just a quick number right off the top. It is something we could do, but just understand it would take a little bit of time.
And again, I guess it's hard for me to take the finance chair hat off, but I will remind everybody it's not just COLA that impacts IMRF and Social Security expense as well. So it's not strictly wages. Anyone else? We have a motion to approve on the floor. To approve the budget policy. Seeing no other comment, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Anything else out of your committee, Mr. Whalen?
No, sir.
All right. Mr. Hadley.
Yes, I got a question for Mr. Whalen. I noticed in July you're going to be looking at health insurance options. And as you know, we're a member of the Association of County Board Members. Me and Mr. Newton were down at meeting in December, I believe, or November. And of the Association of County Board Members, and there was a representative. Of course, they have a health insurance program, and they have a liability program, but I'm talking about the health insurance end of things. I recommend to the committee that we really explore health insurance and put out an RFP this year. Just to open up the door for all the companies, you know. Because some companies do not like to do quotes, but companies will do RFPs. And I would love to see us explore the health insurance and see what we can get, you know. And of course, the city has the same, I'm trying to think of there. Gallagher. They have Gallagher. So if we got to get an RFP, we maybe could borrow the city's RFP and then put in what plan that we have with Blue Cross Blue Shield, because we want to try to have the same plan because of unions. So I really encourage that we do an RFP. Also, we're kind of all over the roadmap with percentages. I don't even know how many employees we still have. 18%. I know all the elected officials, we got up to 24%. We got county employees that are under contract. That varies also. I sure would like to see the county really look at this hard and get to the point where we get them all up to 25% paying the cost. Because if you look at a lot of counties in this state, it's they're got up to 25%. We're probably one of the lowest counties in the state, possibly. You know, I'm just saying that by talking to other counties. So we need to set a goal to get to 25%. That was something that I was trying to do when I was chairman, but we really need to look at that, because when we go into union negotiations, we want to go in knowing that we want to get that moved up to 24% like we have with elected officials and stuff like that. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Hadley. Mr. Whalen, do you have anything else?
Yeah, well, if I can speak to that for just a sec. Mr. Hadley, one, I would comment on the fact that it does appear that you have moved that marker over the last few years, because it has gotten better. It will go out for RFP through Diamond Brothers. I mean, that we looked at the options that were out there, and we're going to ask for quotes from all over the place. So I would highly encourage you, you're more than welcome to come to finance meeting to review that on your own too, anytime. So, but that is going to happen. I just want to assure you of that. I mean, that is in process. We talked about some of those percentages, some of the numbers that were out there. We also talked about the deductibles, things that might improve the overall package that we can offer both competitively in the marketplace to our employees, but also, how we can move forward best for the county.
Mr. Chairman, could I follow all this, please?
Give me 1 second here. Go ahead, Mr. Hadley.
So Diamond Brothers over the years was getting out quotes, and of course Diamond Brothers' competitor is Gallagher's too. So, and Gallagher has told us that, that's their competitor. So when I'm saying that we need to actually do official RFP, maybe not involve Diamond Brothers. I don't think we have a contract with Diamond Brothers to do health insurance. So I don't know. I encourage that we do an RFP and be fair to everybody, even including Gallagher. Because who knows? We might be able to save the taxpayers some money, and that's what we're here to do as a board, So that's all I have, Thank you.
Mr. Hart?
I was, before Mr. Hadley just finished up with that, I would strongly encourage us to go out beyond Diamond Brothers. That's not doing an RFP. Given the amount of money involved, I would think we have a policy, and I don't know, as far as doing public bids for things that are over a certain amount. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see some other brokers. The point that Mr. Hadley makes about Gallagher is a very good point. They are competitors. Our pool, for instance, is also a competitor. They would not work with Gallagher. So as far as brokers, for this kind of money, if this were a private business, I would encourage us to be doing a broker selection and to be sending bids out to multiple brokers. We should be getting public bids from multiple brokers. If we're not, we're doing the county a disservice. It's not best practices, and it's unprofessional. Thank you.
Administrator Newcomer?
Just to kind of update, 3 years ago, I did write an RFP for healthcare. And Gallagher was involved in the process. They ended up not offering us coverage at the time. Since then, we also went out to RFP for liability and are currently in contract with that right now, which is why a lot of the discounts that we've been able to see with our healthcare costs are because we're within that group, I guess. So just letting you know, we did go out for RFP when we left the state plan.
Right. I don't understand what you mean.
Anything else, Ms. Newcomer? Mr. Newton?
You guys keep answering it. So we did go. I know we went out for a broker. We went out for a RFP. I know Gallagher applied last time. So I just said they did do it, and so I'm not advocating that we should do it all over again. But it's quite the process. So if we're going to start that, well, we're going to start that real soon because it takes a long time. So that's all. Thanks.
I think, Mr. Newton, if you recall, when I took over as finance chair, that was one of the things that I wanted to get accomplished, and you told me it was going to take a long time, and it did. It took us all of 2 years to get that accomplished. It was quite a process. So I guess what I would say to the board members that were not part of that process even last year, go back and look at the minutes. Don't make assumptions. Review the information. Mr. Hart.
So we went out to bid as a county last year or 3 years ago?
For which?
For the health insurance.
Yes, we went out last year. Absolutely.
And
through Diamond Brothers. They brought, I don't recall how many. There was only a few that would even bid based on our claims history. And that was part of the problem when we did this. No one wanted to bid on us because we couldn't get claims history from the state of Illinois. Probably 2 administrators ago, when costs skyrocketed, the administrator at that time panicked and went to the state of Illinois plan, blindly, I would say. And it was probably the most expensive and some of the worst coverages that were available at the time. And that was why I wanted to get out of that if we could.
Right.
And we were able to do so. When we finally got accomplished, it saved the county and the employees cumulative $2 million over 2 years with unbelievable coverage, which I think you're aware of, even zero deductible policies.
Well, I am, and Blue Cross Blue Shield is one of the finest carriers in Illinois. I'm not advocating against our current carrier or against Diamond Brothers. I'm simply saying that due diligence would require that we look at other brokers. The process is no different. Whatever loss information you need, whatever specifications you need, whatever you do, whatever you provide them to go get quotes is the same exact process and information that you would give any additional brokers. And I would just say that it's just not proper to not at least have 2 brokers involved. That's just the way it is in private industry. And it's certainly the way it should be here, given the percentage that this is of our budget.
Anything else, Mr. Hart?
That's it, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Whalen, anything else from your committee?
No, sir.
All right, we'll move on to public property and safety. Mr. Copleen.
Yes, I have an action item, Mr. Chairman. I have a resolution to seek a permit from IDOT to close Illinois Route 26 North for October 14th, 8 to noon for a half marathon. Aaron Green from the YMCA gave a presentation to the committee who's coordinating the Pint to Pint half marathon. It's starting at Generations parking lot and ending at Wishful Acres. It begins at 8 a.m. to noon. If there's any questions, I believe Aaron's in the audience.
Mr. Copleen, are you making a motion to approve?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, make a motion to approve.
Right. Is there a second? By Mr. Modero. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
1 no. Motion carries. Anything else out of your committee, Mr. Copleen, or any thoughts?
Just one information. I believe the license plate reader dilemma is solved. Senator Chesney did some legwork for us and got a hold of Vigilant, the company that we bought the license plate readers from. And a representative from Vigilant met with Sheriff Stovall, and they viewed prior emails and communications.
And he stated the equipment that we have, the readers, is still current and no update is needed. And they will install the readers at no cost.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Copley?
No.
All right, thank you very much. We'll move on to Administration Committee. Mr. Jogers, I see you have no action items, but any information out of your committee?
Correct, Chairman. We had 2 items that we talked about on Wednesday. Actually, one of them was the IT manager had a public opening of the RFP bids for IT managed services. I believe there was 10 of those. Is that correct? Okay. So he's going to review those and come back to the committee with a recommendation on the best plan for the county and for him. So we'll see that here in probably next month. And there was another item that we approved an RFP to go out for voter registration in an electronic poll book. So that was approved and that went out. So you're going to see that come back at some point too. So other than that, I have nothing.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Jogers. We'll move on to Court Services, and Mr. Bush, looks like you have an action item.
Yes, once again, concerning the IT grant that the circuit clerk received, we got 2 bids, well, 2 payments, which is over $10,000, which the money got to be spent by the end of the month, so she's doing a good job of taking care of that, so I so move.
All right, thank you. Is there a second? By Mr. Whalen. Is there any discussion on the motion to approve? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
We have 1. No motion passes. Any other information out of your committee, Mr. Bush?
Yes, we did vote on the state's attorney that when he and Sean covered some attorneys who was working with Ms. Henny concerning the zoning issue. So the committee did vote to approve that, which is budget.
Very good. Thank you, sir. We'll move on to nursing. Oh, Mr. Hart snuck in there. Go ahead.
Just have one quick comment. I'm going to have to make this a little bit of a question too, and I'm going to have to call on Mr. Larson. One of the things that was discussed in court services was a recent case that I believe Mr. Larson had an appeal, correct me if I'm wrong, to the Illinois Supreme Court, Mr. Larson?
Yeah, we recently filed a PLA, which is not an appeal. It's a PLA stands for Petition for Leave to Appeal to the Supreme Court.
The point I was making was that my understanding was that this was a pretty big deal and that you did a lot of good work and should be acknowledged for it.
Well, yeah, thank you. It's, but I wish I could take the credit, but it was the appellate prosecutor did almost all of the work, but I appreciate the acknowledgement. Thank you.
And this was, just so everyone knows, this was regarding a child molestation case and something that Mr. Larson pursued even after the court rejected that, if you will. I think he did an outstanding job, and I think the county is safer for his efforts. So thank you, Mr. Larson.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hart. We will move on to nursing and Mrs. Baker. Looks like you have a couple action items.
The first item up for approval is the contract with WWR, which is a collection agency. WWR will be utilized for accounts that TCM would recommend for write-offs. Mr. Larson was sent a copy of this agreement, so with that, I make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
By Mr. Whalen. Is there any discussion? Mr.
No, I'm good. I'm just slow on
Ready to push the button. Mr. Copeland, please go ahead.
Yeah, what's their reputation and track record?
Well, we would probably ask TCM if they would, since this is a company they recommended. Mr. Filippo, would you mind coming up, answering the question?
WWR is one of the leaders, not just in Illinois, but in the country, with collections in the healthcare space. We've used them, not exclusively, but we've used them for our other properties for back to 2003 that I can count. So very good with communicating and, communicating along the way of, what's really collectible, what isn't. And hey, we can go out here, we can file something, we think we'll get this when the house sells, which could be 10 years from now, but, we'll get 20,000 in 10 years is better than getting nothing. So they have a pretty good reputation.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Your next action item, Mrs. Baker.
Second up is approval of agreement with Leverage Staffing Agency. Leverage will be used as a backup service to our current 2 providers with Grapetree and Nurse Wright. This company provides agency nurses. The agreement also has been sent to Mr. Larson, and with that, I also make a motion to approve.
Okay, there's a motion to approve. Is there a second by Mr. Hart? Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Your final item, please.
Last action item is approval of claims totaling an amount of $379,670. This total amount is due to liability. In Monday's finance meeting, the committee meeting approved payment to this fund. To carry out the directive of the total, it was broken down into smaller invoices to progress towards repayment of this. With that, I make a motion to approve pending funding.
Okay, motion to approve by Ms. Baker, seconded by Mr. Jogerst. Discussion. Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please take roll call on this due to the dollar amount?
Nicole Baker.
Aye.
Brian Grant.
Aye.
Tim Whalen.
Yes.
Ronnie Bush.
Aye.
Samuel Newton.
Aye.
Luann Hayes.
Aye.
Casey Anthony.
Aye.
William Hadley.
Aye.
Jim Hart.
Yes.
Kirk Copeland.
Aye.
Adam Modero.
Aye.
Larry Jokers.
Aye.
Brooke Donovan.
Aye.
Scott Helms.
Aye.
Jackie DeMeester.
Aye.
15 nay, no nay. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Anything else on your committee, Mrs. Baker?
No, this census is at 41.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
41.
For the
Census,
census.
sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. All right, we will move on to planning development. Mr. Frick is
Chairman
not. I'm sorry. Miss Anthony, I apologize. I look up, I look down.
Thank you. Just because this question was asked previously, so any star ratings can be found. This was the first I had seen the sheet today too. And so I did my Google search quick. You can go to the Illinois Department of Public Health, which then takes you to the CMS website, which gives you the star ratings. I did check to make sure that information is accurate, and it is. Also, no, I lost my train of thought. Oh, it is CNA week, I believe, or it's coming up. I can't remember. Is it this week? Started today. And so I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the CNAs and the hard work that they do. Anyone that's had anyone in any type of care situation where a CNA is there, they can provide this relationship with the patients that they're working with, that something that I could never do. And so I just wanted to appreciate all the hardworking CNAs that are out there and committed to the field. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Miss Anthony. All right, we will now move on to Mr. Hart, filling in for Mr. Frick for planning and development. There are no action items. Do you have information from your committee?
There is absolutely nothing additional.
I'm sorry, would you repeat that? I failed to have your microphone.
There is nothing additional.
All right.
We have no action items.
All right, we'll
Thank
move. Yep, Mr. Newton.
Thank you, Chairman. I did submit a Black Hawk Hills report to the Planning and Development Committee. And as a note, we had Black Hawk Hills here earlier this year with a serious issue regarding their 501c3. That has been totally reinstated, if you didn't catch that. So they are still working on their auditing firm to make sure that everything lines up. But everything is looking A-okay, and so they've been doing a wonderful job, and that's all of the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Newton. All right, we will move on to Public Works. Mr. Brandt, I do not believe you have any action items, but is there any information out of your committee?
No, thank you, Chairman, nothing new.
All right, thank you very much. We have nothing in new business, and we'll move to public comment. Is there anyone that would like to make public comment? If so, please step forward, state your name, and you will be given 3 minutes.
Hello, Ed Klein again. I really don't know where to start because there is the problem with any issue is we need facts and we need open communication. And so then if we don't know all the facts, we know how to get the facts. And what is happening is people are floating things around that are absolutely not true. Mr. Whalen, I don't want to embarrass you, but you did say that you don't understand accrual accounting or something. So you understand, this is a copy of the contract for TCM. It is page 9, paragraph, and it says in this highlighted, monthly financial statements prepared on an accrual basis and in accordance with GAAP. That is foundational for any business of this size. If you have a mom and pop little selling pop, and hot dogs, maybe you can use cash. Once you move to any size of business, you need accrual. And there are people in this room that can explain that. And I think that's what has to happen. Somehow that communication has got to get past the misinformation so we get to the truth of the matter. We have a chairman that is a bank president that I absolutely believe understands accrual. Absolutely. And I would believe also that he understands how it applies to the nursing center. We have a management company with a CFO who's been at it how many years? 40 years. So I think he knows how to run the business of a nursing center. And yet, we aren't, I'm not. People in this room are sitting here doubting what that man is saying and not understanding. So how do we get to understand? I do have an email here from Mr. Whalen as finance chairman to the rest of the committee, and there's good questions. The question I have then is how do these get answered? Because we need these questions answered. We cannot make good decisions moving forward unless we actually get some good, solid answers that are truth, not, made up. That nursing center is in the black. If it's in the black, I have no idea why we're trying to sell it. Or if you actually really want to sell it, you should be doing everything you can to increase the census and make it worth more. You are being irresponsible by trying to run it into the ground. That costs the taxpayers money. You're selling it on a fire sale when there's no excuse for it. The building, sure, is 50 years old. There's a lot of buildings that are 50 years old. I'm 70 years old, and I'm not ready to go anywhere. Need a little upkeep, I have to go to the doctor once in a while. Same thing with that building. There's no reason to sell it. I really think we need to get rid of the misinformation and find out what the truth of the matter is. Thank you very much.
Anyone else for public comment?
Yes.
Please state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Allison Broman-Kahn again for Laura Youngblood, who couldn't be here. So Laura has a grateful message. Thank you, CNAs of Walnut Acres. This is the second day of CNA Week. The helping hands of CNAs are the best resources of patient care as they spend the most direct time with each resident. I appreciate all the hard work each CNA does to take care of our citizens of Stephenson County. Thank you to the 6 board members who continue to support and advocate for our county employees. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I am Shirley Kostia. Mike Filippo, 40 years experience, has said that there's almost no way possible that a public nursing home can lose money. Evidently, McHenry County has figured that out. The article I passed out tonight says that they just unanimously approved a $3.1 million memory care wing. I suggest that when you go to Galena and meet these other county board members from across the state, that you seek out some from the McHenry County Board, because obviously they understand that public nursing homes make money, which is what, even if that's what you think is the most important thing, they do make money. Tim Whalen tonight, I heard him say that using the accrual method, nursing homes in the black. That's what he said. So I don't know what, I don't get. I guess next month you're hoping that the census will be below 40. And then what, 20, 10? Now we have to sell it. It's not worth anything. You guys are not doing your jobs. You are not being good stewards of our money.
Anyone else? Are you speaking for yourself, ma'am?
I'm speaking for myself.
Very good, thank you.
Allison Broman-Kahn. So piggybacking on what Jody Cos just said, the article that I read about the success of the McHenry County Nursing Home and its plans for expansion, the newspaper that article was in also contained an article about an age-in-place facility in Schaumburg. There was a photograph of it. It looked gorgeous. It's filing for bankruptcy. People affiliated with this place said it's no big deal. We're going to find a buyer. The residents will be able to stay. It'll be an easy transition to sell it. It's not. It's not an easy transition. My reason for saying this is to point out that privatizing something that the public owns is not a key to success and stability for the residents. It's risky. It's dangerous. It's a business proposition for any conglomerate or even small enterprise that would buy a nursing home. The Upward Corporation doesn't have a very good record. So there are many, many, many responsible ways to examine what the future of the nursing home and senior citizens of Stephenson County and the region could be. Selling is not a responsible action. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Hi, Mike Filippo, speaking for myself. I hadn't planned on coming up here tonight at all, but I did see the article that was just referenced for Valley High Nursing Home in McHenry, adding a $3.1 billion memory care unit, and kind of caught my eye. So I really don't have a lot of information, but what I did do is I went back into the cost reports, and the latest one you can find online is 2021. And Valley High ended the year with $14 million in their account. Valley High today has a $460 a day Medicaid rate. So without any other facts, I just jumped to the conclusion, which could be wrong, that they actually understand what I've been saying for a year, that the system is designed for a nursing home to not lose money if it's a county-owned, not-for-profit building. They bill and collect correctly. The reason why a lot of buildings have closed, county-owned nursing homes, is because they didn't bill and collect correctly. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting article. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, there is no new business. Is there a motion to adjourn? Ms. Hayes. Is there a second? By Ms. Steiger. Is there any discussion on that? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, everyone.